Health and fitness requires more than just the physical work. It starts with the work you put in to grow your mind. Welcome to the Mind Gains podcast, where we discuss what it takes mentally to see results physically. I'm your host, Jess. Let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Gains podcast. I am so happy you're here. Today, we're going to be going over how to simplify nutrition. In the world that we live in today, nutrition and eating healthy and eating enough protein, eating enough carbs, eating enough fats, it is made to be so overcomplicated, to be honest. And the second I learned how to oversimplify it, everything changed for me, because we all know that nutrition is, I would say, like the most important piece of health and fitness. If you have every other piece lined up perfectly, but your nutrition and your diet is not where it needs to be, you are probably not going to get very far in whatever goal you're trying to achieve. So if nutrition is that important, then we really need to figure out a way to make it work and make it sustainable. And again, just simplify it, because I can't tell you how many healthy or macro-friendly recipes I have saved on my Instagram that I never once tried because they were just so complicated. I'm talking like 30 ingredients that you need that you're probably never ever going to even need for another recipe again. Plus it takes like an hour to make. Then you have to figure out how to track all of those little ingredients, which if you're new to tracking, it's already going to be an adjustment as is. Like, we need to make tracking as simple as possible. We need to make the barrier to entry as small as possible. Basically, we need to make it as easy as we can to get started, right? And get our foot in the door. So that is what we're going to go over today. Just some practical ways to make your nutrition a little bit easier, I guess, on a day-to-day basis, and figure out what is the least complicated way that I can meet my calories, meet my protein, and take one step towards my goals each and every day. And the first thing we need to talk about on the Mind Gains podcast is your mindset around food and around nutrition and around just dieting in general, because I think oftentimes we misuse the term diet a lot and like to say that we are going on a diet, which then implies that at some point down the line, we're going to be off of that diet. And if that is our plan going into it, then why are we even starting that? If we already plan to not keep up with the things that we are starting, why are we even starting it to begin with? So when I say diet, it does not mean we are now only eating certain types of foods. We are now only eating a very specific way for like the next 6 months until we're off of the diet again. Diet just means it's the way you eat, right? It is what your diet consists of. It's what your nutrient intake looks like. So instead of trying to think about it as like a diet that we are now going to completely change out the way that we're eating and completely change out, all the different types of foods that we're eating, it's about starting to make small changes, right? Implementing it little by little by little. Instead of, one day to the next, we've now fully cut out carbs and we're never eating ice cream again and we're never having takeout again. It's about making small adjustments and small changes to your diet. Maybe you start focusing more on getting in protein. Maybe that's like your first step, is you make sure you have a protein source at every meal. Maybe you are already eating protein pretty often, but you decide to start doubling your protein source to make sure that you are getting in enough protein. Then maybe you start moving on to adding in fruits and veggies. Maybe you haven't really been doing that and you need to get your micronutrients in, so you start adding in more fruits, vegetables, fiber. It's just about, again, taking one step after another rather than, I think, trying to jump from point A to point B. And the gap is so large that it's going to essentially be impossible to do that in a way that you're going to be able to maintain forever. So let's stop trying to be perfect and start going on this really intense, really restrictive diet one day to the next. Let's stop thinking about tracking your food as a restriction and start thinking about it as a way to make sure that you're eating enough food. If you're just starting and you have a really hard time with consistency in your intake and you set your calories at 1700, don't view it as, well, I can only eat 1700 calories now, I need to stay under this. Start viewing it as, this is like the threshold that I have to reach because I need to make sure I am giving my body enough of the food and enough of the fuel that it needs. It's only restrictive if you make it restrictive in your mind. That's where it starts. And we also need to stop labeling foods as good or bad. A food is a food. It can't be good or bad, right? It can be nutrient dense, or maybe it's lacking a little bit in nutrients, but it's not good or bad. Nutrient dense does not equal good. Lacking in nutrients does not equal bad. There's a place for all of it in your diet. Yes, we do need to prioritize nutrient-dense foods, protein, whole foods, most of the time if we want to change our body composition and just be healthier. But when you label foods as good or bad, you are now subconsciously telling yourself that you can no longer have the quote unquote bad foods because they're just no good for you. They don't serve a purpose, and there's just no place in your diet for them. But the fact of the matter is they do serve a purpose. I know for a fact that if I did not include the quote unquote bad foods ever, I would not be where I am today, because there is no way that if I was trying to implement this lifestyle and eat a healthier diet, that I would not be going crazy if that was all I was ever eating all of the time. All I would do is be constantly thinking about the foods that I told myself that I can't include, because the second you tell yourself that you can't include it, that's when you really, really want it. Again, it is a mental thing a lot of times. If you tell yourself you can never satisfy a craving and you can never have French fries again, that is all you're going to want. And I know that because I've done it. And I'm sure you have probably tried it at some point too and can probably relate to that. So including the less nutrient dense foods in moderation, usually about 20% of the time, is what actually helps you reach your goals, because that is what makes this a sustainable lifestyle. That is what makes this a sustainable change that you can keep up with forever, because you're not pretending like you're going to be perfect and have all the willpower in the world and never want to eat a dang brownie again. So we're not pretending here. We are just going into it with the mindset of, I don't need to be perfect. There are no good or bad foods. Everything in moderation. There is a very big middle ground balance to everything, right? So that's going to be number one, is watching your mindset, watching the way you view nutrition and view foods and view this journey. So getting into the foundational principles of just keeping your nutrition as simple as possible. Number one, keep protein at like the center of all your meals. I tell all my clients, I'm like, protein is the star of the show, right? Like, it is the main act. You should be having protein at every meal. If you are eating meals that don't have at least like 20 grams of protein, bare minimum, you're probably going to really struggle to meet your protein goal. So we really need to make sure that protein is like the first food on your plate. When you're structuring your meals, it is the first thing that you're picking out. You pick your protein source, then you pick your carbs, then add on a fruit or a veggie. And that equation right there, that is what changed everything for me. It sounds so simple. And I know I've talked about this here before, but sometimes I feel like we just need a reminder that we are the problem a lot of times. Like, we are the ones that tend to just overcomplicate it when it really doesn't need to be that complicated. When you are sitting down to think about what meal you want to have for dinner tonight, pick your protein source first. Do you want steak? Do you want chicken breast, chicken thighs, some sort of fish? Do you want turkey? Do you want pork, shrimp? Pick your protein source. Then move on to carbs, because we need carbs as well. Are you feeling some brown rice, white rice, potatoes, pasta, quinoa, bulgur wheat, couscous, whatever sounds good to you for that day? And then if you can add on some sort of fruit or vegetable into that meal, fantastic. Let's throw some green beans or broccoli or cauliflower or corn, or I don't know, let's add some berries in there on the side if it's breakfast or something. Like, let's make it so simple. And the best part about making that really simple is that it is so much easier to track rather than trying to follow the TikTok recipe that you saved 3 months ago and you're just now getting around to trying. And there's like a million different ingredients on there that you now have to figure out amounts for and start tracking. Like, just track your steak, your potatoes, and your broccoli if that's what you're having for dinner. And as you become more experienced with all of this, with nutrition, with tracking, then it's a little bit easier to kind of branch out and maybe try some more challenging recipes that do include a little bit more. But while you are just starting, make it so simple that it's stupid. If you are someone who is super busy throughout your day, your week, which, let's be real, most of us are, you're going to need to have some sort of plan in place. You can try winging it all you want. You will never be as successful as you would be if you planned ahead. I don't care if you're a planner or not. And I will drill this into people's heads. I will try to drill it into their heads as much as possible. And the funniest thing to me is when I tell people about it for months on end and they refuse to try meal prepping, bulk prepping, pre-logging their food. They refuse to do any of that because they're just not planners. Then they finally realize, yeah, you know what? I am kind of spinning my wheels and I'm kind of staying stuck here and I want more. I'm working really hard, but I'm still not seeing the results that I want. Let me try to plan ahead a little bit more. And they do it. And guess what? It clicks. They come around and they're like, well, dang, why haven't I done this sooner? It takes all of the stress of nutrition off your plate, of just having things planned out ahead of time. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to have every single little thing planned out. You don't have to have every single meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, plus all your snacks prepped for the next week. But if you know that your mornings are crazy busy, and if you don't have a plan in place, you will not hit your protein for breakfast and you're not going to hit your marks for nutrition, then you have to plan your breakfast. Do some overnight oats. It takes about 5 minutes to do some overnight oats, put them in a jar, and they're ready to go. And guess what? Then you're successful with your breakfast all week. If you're busy and if you are sitting here and saying that you don't have time to hit your targets for the day when it comes to nutrition, this is not optional for you. You have to plan ahead. And you have to do at least some sort of meal prepping or bulk prepping. I personally always will go for a bulk prep over a meal prep. And if you're not familiar with the difference between those, a meal prep is exactly what it sounds like, right? Like, I think we all know what a meal prep is you are preparing like full on meals for yourself that you can then eat, throughout the week. Bulk prepping, on the other hand, is you are not making any specific meals. You are instead making ingredients in bulk that you then store in separate containers. My go-to, if I am bulk prepping, is I'm making a big old thing of rice, usually a big old tub of potatoes. I might do some like chicken breast in my slow cooker and shred that up, and some ground beef. I then store all of those ingredients separately in their own containers. That way, two things. Number one, I'm not tied down to the same meal for days on end, because I don't know about you, but a lot of times I can't do that. I don't really want to eat the same exact thing for every single meal all week long. If I bulk prep, there's a lot more flexibility with what I can do. Maybe one day some chicken and rice sounds good for me, but the next day I don't really want that again. So I could do some chicken on a sandwich and then do some barbecue sauce. I can use the same ingredients, but make different meals. And the other thing with that is meal prepping puts you in a less flexible position because the meal is what it is, right? Like, the macros for that meal are not changing once you have put all of the ingredients together. Whereas if you're bulk prepping and you're going throughout your day, or you're pre-logging the night before and you see that you're a little low on protein and a little high on your carb sources, you can easily just take out, maybe you had that chicken and rice planned, but maybe you just take out some of that rice, which gives you more calories back, and then you can add in more of the chicken, which then helps you reach all of your macros the way you need to. So I always prefer and recommend bulk prepping, but some people love meal prepping, so find what works best for you. But again, if you are not meeting your targets, right? If you are not meeting your targets 80 to 90% of the time with perfection in that 80 to 90% of the time. I'm not talking like you're literally perfect all the time. I just mean like you are actually meeting your calorie goal, your protein goal, your carb goal, your fat goal, like everything spot on, perfect 80 to 90% of the time. You have to plan ahead. You have to start bulk prepping or meal prepping to be successful, because it's not just going to happen. And I'm not going to get into what pre-logging is, because if you're newer here, I have gone over pre-logging, I think in a couple different episodes in the past. So I don't want to take up too much of your time with that. If you're not sure what it is, just kind of like high level overview. Essentially, the night before, you're just planning out everything that you're going to eat the next day. That way you can manipulate your meals ahead of time and make any changes that you need to in order to meet right at all of your targets. And it makes it super easy that the next day you have a blueprint for success, that you just follow it to a T. You know what you have for breakfast, you know what you have for lunch, for dinner, for your snacks. You can space things out evenly if you're struggling to eat enough, right? You already know what you're eating ahead of time, so you can space things out really well. You can make sure you're staying on top of your meals and you're meeting all of your targets perfectly. That's pre-logging. So if you're not already doing that, that is another thing, another huge component that's going to really simplify your nutrition. When I started, just like most people, I was just kind of logging things as I was going throughout the day, right? Because that's all we really know when we're starting. But the problem with doing that is that every single night I was in this position of not having very many calories left, but I was so short on protein, because who the heck is eating enough protein on their own? Like, no one is doing that. We have to be very intentional about getting in enough protein at every meal. So what I was saying earlier about getting in at least like 20 grams of protein for every meal, I was not doing that. I was getting in like maybe 10 grams at breakfast, maybe 20 for lunch, maybe 30 for dinner, but I was not reaching my very high protein goal that I had set when I was just kind of flouncing around and going through the day like that, doing everything just on a whim. This lifestyle requires planning. I will say it over and over and over again. This lifestyle and your results don't care if you're a planner or not. Your goals don't care if you work well under pressure. If you're not watching, I'm using air quotes, because I'm sorry, that's not a thing. It's not a thing, because it's not that you work well under pressure. It's that you have no choice but to produce something at this point. But I promise you, the quality of the work that you're putting in will never be as good as the quality of work you would do if you were planning ahead for your success. So whether you like planning or not, you're just going to have to do it. If you want what you're after bad enough, you are going to do it. So if you're not pre-logging, please start pre-logging, because it will honestly change everything for you. It's going to change the way you view nutrition. It's going to change the stress you feel around trying to meet your goals for the day. It's going to change the stress of, I'm super busy at work, I have about 10 minutes between meetings to figure out what the heck I'm going to eat. There is none of that. You already know. You have a 100% foolproof plan in place for your success that day. All you have to do is pull up your log and say, oh yeah, this is what I'm having. Let me go grab it from the fridge, right? So if you haven't tried it, please try it. Do like one full day of fully pre-logging and see how much it helps you out. You also want to keep some really quick, easy options as well. You always want to have something on hand that you can just grab and go if the situation calls for it. Now, when I say that, let's be careful, because this is not it's easier for me to grab a protein bar rather than scramble some eggs in the morning. It's not a replacement. That's what I want to really emphasize, is the quick option is not a replacement on a normal basis for what you know you should be doing, because we need to eat more whole foods. And I'm sorry, but you're never going to get the same benefits out of a protein bar that you would from Whole Foods. There's nothing wrong with the protein bar. There's nothing wrong with the quick options, but we should not be relying on it every day to help us reach our protein goal, or as a replacement, because it's just easier to do that than make ourselves some eggs in the morning or whatever you're making, because it's just more convenient. Those are options that you have in like dire circumstances. Maybe your day just totally goes out the window. You get a call that you have to go pick your kids up from school because there's a lice outbreak going around and you're scrambling now and you have like 10 minutes before you have a meeting at work, so you got to go get them and you need to eat your breakfast, you got to get your protein in. So yes, that would be a situation that it's like, okay, let me grab the protein bar, let me grab the protein shake, let me grab the quick option that I know is going to help me reach my goals for the day, but I'm not reliant on it. This is for more of those rare occurrences rather than reliant on it for breakfast every single day, right? So you do want to have some quick options just in case something like that happens, because at the end of the day, it's always going to be better that you eat that protein bar rather than eat nothing or run through the drive-thru and grab some McDonald's breakfast because you just didn't have time to make anything that morning. Another really great option is having like almost like pre-made yogurt parfaits, sectioning out yogurt into some Tupperware, have your fruit washed and prepped ahead of time that we could just easily throw in some berries, throw in some granola, and call it a day. Turkey and cheese roll-ups are a really great option as well. Sometimes people do like pinwheels and just have those set as snacks that they could easily grab, or if they know that they're going to be out for the day and they just need something that is able to stay refrigerated, they could bring it in their cooler and just make sure that they are prepared with food while they're out, so they're not then finding themselves really hungry and then back in that fast food drive-thru. Also, keep staple meals. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Usually, I will probably keep anywhere from like 6 to 8 meals on repeat for a good while because I genuinely enjoy those meals. They're super easy, super quick for me to make because I hate spending time in the kitchen. So anything that I'm making takes about 15 minutes or less. And then I don't even have to really think that hard about, well, what am I going to have for dinner? Like I just have a list in my brain of things that I could potentially make because I make them often and I really like them and they fit well into my macros, and put it on repeat. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't want to eat the same meal for days on end, but there is also nothing wrong with only having like 7 or less meals that you want to make. You don't need a selection of like 50 different healthy meals to choose from all the time. And if you're in a position where you're not really able to track or you just don't want to track, my go-to is always the hand guide. I actually talked about this in my previous episode where I was talking about how to navigate the holidays, and we are coming up into that time of year here pretty soon again. The reason I brought it up in that episode is because that is when I'm using the hand guide mainly. I'm using it for Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day. I also use it a lot like if I'm at a wedding and it's buffet style and I can kind of structure my plate myself. I will utilize the hand guide rather than stressing about the fact that I can't log my food because I don't have my scale and I don't know how to log it. And so that just means I'm going to totally go overboard and not be mindful at all. Not tracking or not being able to track is not an excuse for you to just go all in on the food that's there. There is a way to stay mindful and to watch your portion sizes and make sure that you are eating enough and including everything that you need without just going all in on the food. So when it comes to the hand guide, just like I said before, you're always going to start with your protein source. So you're going to, grab your plate. You're going to grab about a palm-sized serving of protein. So if you were to hold up your palm, it's going to be this section. I'm giving visuals in case you're not actually watching. You're then going to move on to your carb source and you're going to do a fist size serving of your carbs, whatever is available to you. If you are in a position where you have multiple carb sources and you want to stay a little bit more on track, you're obviously going to pick the carb source that makes the most sense for that. So if they have mashed potatoes sitting out, whatever event you're at, they've got mashed potatoes and they've got like those potato wedges, you're probably going to want to pick the potato wedges over the mashed potatoes because the mashed potatoes are probably going to have a lot of butter and milk in them and probably some heavy whipping cream as well. So the potato wedges are probably going to be a little bit better of an option. There's probably still a lot of oil on them, but again, just kind of going for the option that makes the most sense for you in that position. After that, you're going to grab about 2 cupped hand size, if you can see this, of your fruit or vegetable source or salad, if they have that. Once you have all of that on your plate, you're all set. You have your protein, your carbs. There's going to be some fats in there as well because I can guarantee the food that you're eating at your cousin's wedding is going to be cooked in butter and olive oil and all the good stuff. So you don't need to add on fats onto that. And you have your micronutrients as well. This is how we simplify nutrition if we're not in a position to be tracking. There is still always something you can do. And one of the most important pieces of advice that I could ever give you is after that event that you are a little bit off plan, a little bit off track, you don't know fully what you ate there, you want to get back to your normal routine as quickly as possible. This does not mean that you go to a wedding one night and then the next day you decide to fast until dinner to make up for what you did the night before. First of all, that's punishment. We're now punishing ourselves because we went to a wedding the night before, right? So now we're telling ourselves, well, you're just not going to eat until dinner. You get one meal today to make up for that. We're not doing that. Number two, it's actually so much worse for you to do that. Your body does not girl math its way into making up for calories the way that we do. It's actually so much better for us to just get right back to our normal routine, nothing less, nothing more, and get our body back into the consistency that it's accustomed to as quickly as we can. We don't want to underdo it. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want to punish ourselves for having a social life. We're not taking things to the extreme. This is not bodybuilding prep. If you are in prep for bodybuilding, that is an entirely different story, but we are talking about lifestyle. If you're here for lifestyle, we're not doing a body prep. So there's no reason that we need to be that intense that we can never go out and have a social life. So just get right back into whatever your normal routine typically looks like as soon as you're able to, and your body is going to respond a lot better to that consistency rather than overeating one night and then we're way under eating the next day and then we're trying to balance it out and your body doesn't know what the heck is going on. Just give it what it's accustomed to having and it will pay you back by leveling out much quicker. So don't overthink nutrition. Focus on the basics. Focus on consistency over perfection, because perfection is only going to work for so long until it doesn't anymore, because we can't stay perfect forever. So focus on consistency, focus on continuously just getting 1% better, and prioritize freedom over restriction. So I hope this helps kind of simplify things as much as possible. Again, I know nutrition is absolutely the hardest piece of this. It is definitely the thing that most of us have to work the hardest towards, and it takes sometimes the longest for us to adjust to. But again, let's start looking to make things as easy as we possibly can. Nutrition is nutrition. It is what it is. It is us, and it is the person who overcomplicates it or oversimplifies it. It is us who overthinks it or is mindful and does acknowledge how important it is without letting it stress them out and feel like they have to be perfect. But we need to find a way to make it as simple as we can and work it into our lives as seamlessly as possible, because without that piece where it needs to be, we are going to stay stuck spinning our wheels for a really long time. And nothing is more frustrating than that. Thank you so much for listening. Please share this episode with someone who you know it could help, and let's keep crushing our nutrition all week long.